Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Convo. This is a special episode because, see, before we were Convo, we had a podcast called What We're Watching. And on one of those podcasts, we were reviewing the movie The Death of Superman Lives, which is an awesome documentary that you should all go check out. Before you check it out or after you check out our review of this movie. And boy, did we dodge a bullet.
Did we?
Yes, Superman Returns, that still got made.
Man of Steel?
Yeah. Okay, so we dodged 1 out of 3 bullets. Go check it out. The Death of Superman Lives, Vic. The Death of Superman Lives. Now, wait, before we get into it, I want to let anybody know who's listening to this podcast, there are spoilers involved. If you've seen the trailer for this movie, you know, there's a lot of really good information that you'll learn as you're watching the documentary. So for those of you who listen and want a spoiler-free review, this isn't it. You're going to get spoilers, a whole lot of spoilers. So that being said, pause it, check it out, come back. All right, good. We got that out the way. Now, Death of Superman Lives, man. It's to me, it was a good doc. I learned a whole lot. I learned a whole lot from it. And shout out to John Schnepp for making this possible, because I remember when I first heard about this was like an Indiegogo or Kickstarter project. Everybody kind of heard the I guess you'd call it the legend of Nicolas Cage. You know, everybody's seen that picture of Nicolas Cage in the suit, in this weird suit with the long black hair, and the possibility of that it would have been Tim Burton's version of Superman. And this guy took it a step further and decided to really try and make a documentary out of this. And I remember when he first came out with the pitch, and it was good. You know, it was kind of like he was doing it on his own money, I think, and then he wanted some more money to help him out to fly and actually, you know, interview these people and get everybody that he could so he can really find out the true story on what happened and why this didn't get made. And he did it. You know, he went on Indiegogo, got the money, and then fast forward to this week when it was released. And I gotta say, you know, money well spent for all those who gave him that money to help him do the documentary, because I feel like he got everybody, with the exception of Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage, for some reason, didn't want to be interviewed for this film. I don't know why. Everybody thought Tim Burton would be the hardest to get. Even John Schnepp, I think he said in an interview, I thought the hardest person, you know, to get would have been Tim Burton, but it was actually Nicolas Cage, which is really weird, because it's like I don't know why he, you know, and then he never really explained why he didn't do it.
I mean, it's kind of obvious, you know what I'm saying, because he had, like, recently, if you're gonna look into the future, he's done comic book movies before with the Ghost Rider films. Both of them bombed. You know what I'm saying? He was horrible as Ghost Rider. You know what I'm saying? So he was like, even now you got a film that didn't get made just based off the rumors that it might be a bad film. I get why he wouldn't want to do it, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like it wouldn't have made him look ridiculous if he would have just given his, because I think everybody was.
Well, you got to remember, it's like when they showed that picture. You know what I'm saying? That still picture of him in the costume is not even, it's just like one of the prototypes. You know, people automatically are going to that right there. Like they're coming at him for that. So he's like the face, you know what I'm saying? Even, you know, it's like the rumors, you know, it's like they were saying in this thing. This is really before the internet really takes off and stuff. So people are hearing rumors about him being Superman and no one likes it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, he's like the hated guy, you know what I'm saying? So now he's going to be in this doc and stuff, like, you know what I'm saying? Is he going to be like the Arnold in Pumping Iron? You know what I'm saying? He doesn't want to be the villain.
Well, the villain of this movie that I thought was just hilarious, and I'm just like, he's like, to me, he is what personifies what's wrong with Hollywood, which is John Peters. Like, every time that guy comes on screen, I'm like, oh my God, how did, like... The guy, I mean, granted, the guy was a hairdresser before. Look, it's a Hollywood, you know, everybody has their Hollywood story. I was a janitor. I was a cab driver or whatever. Everybody has that Hollywood dream. So I'm not going to really, you know, diss the guy on being a hairdresser, but come on, like, First of all, when he was like, well, I was a Superman fan and that's why I wanted the rights. I was like, there's no way you're a Superman fan. There's no way you're a Superman fan.
No, especially like everything that the Duke that came out his mouth was opposite of what Superman was about. I don't like the I don't like the costume because it's too gay. I don't like I'm saying him flying around. Like what is that? You know what I'm saying? It's like, dude, you're just knocking everything that Superman's about, but you're claiming to be a fan. You're the anti-fan Superman. It's like if you're trying to make a film to go ahead and trash the man's name and everything that Superman stands for, this is what you were trying to do. You know what I'm saying? That's the impression I got. It's like, yeah, he wanted to make like money and stuff, but it's as if he felt like the only way he could make money from this film was if he wasn't really doing a Superman film.
Yeah, which is so weird. I was just like, what sense does that make? It's like you're making a Superman film, but you don't want to make him the traditional Superman. You want to go all the way left field. So why don't you just do a different movie with your tarantulas and your polar bears and your any other animals?
Which he kind of did, because remember
the Wild Wild West,
the Wild Wild West, and that all that come to fruit later on. You know what I'm saying? So it's like he ended up getting it's like what Kevin Smith says. It's like, man, the bastard got what he wanted.
He got his. And man, Kevin Smith, Kevin Smith, who also partnered up with this movie. He was great. Like I liked his insight. I like his kind of take. The best line of the whole film was when he was talking to John Peters and he was like, or I forget, he was talking to some executive. They're like, yeah, we're trying to find somebody to write the Death of Superman. And Kevin Smith was like, well, why don't you hire the comic book writers? They're the ones that wrote the stories. And they're like, we don't want to get comic book writers. They're not gonna know what to write. And it's just like. So that's the story, pre-Marvel, all this that's happening now is like people getting, thinking that comic book writers can't write a screenplay or can't at least give you a good story.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, like saying like porn stars can't act, and you put a porn star in a film, like a major film, and then they end up doing just the same job as like any other actor or actress. And people forget that when it comes to acting, it's really not that hard. Think about it like this: if 50 Cent, Ice Cube, Ice-T, or saying some supermodel could be in a film and start acting, and they could pull it off. You know what I'm saying? If anything, it'd be kudos to the production.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Right.
Regular acting. Acting. I mean, we're not talking Shakespearean. We're not talking drama.
No. We're talking about like I'm not talking about an actual film about being nominated for Academy Award. But mind you, some of these people who had no acting chops back in the day have got themselves an Academy Award at one point. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Marilyn Monroe, I think she won herself a Golden Globe or an Academy Award and stuff. I think she
really?
did. And meanwhile, there's like legendary like tales about her being a horrible actress. I mean, mind you, they just did the one my week with Marilyn and stuff, film and stuff, and it's really all about the fact she can't act. Yeah, she has to her credit like some kind of theatrical award, some major award. I'm not sure. I believe it's an Academy Award or both Academy Award and a Golden Globe.
Oh, I gotta check that out.
Or she was nominated. I'm not exactly sure, but don't quote me on that. But I know for a fact that she got nominated for a major motion picture.
Well, with writing, I know writing's a little bit different. Writing is like you need to know the structure. You need to know how to create a story. And comic book writers know how not only how to create a story, but know how to create a short story on just a bunch of
It's not just that.
Panels.
It's like they know how to do it. They know how to do it on the fly. I mean, think about when you're releasing a comic book. You're doing it. You have to release an issue
every week.
You know what I'm saying? Well, I wouldn't say every week because you're doing like, let's say, Amazing Spider-Man and Sensational Spider-Man. They're gonna be. You're gonna see them come out every week, but in reality, the issue itself coming out once a month.
I see
so they're doing it once a month.
Yeah, you're right.
But there are like other ones like the mangas and stuff, like the Naruto's and stuff, and like they release them every week, and they might take a break once in a blue, But they're doing that, like they're putting it out. So actually, when it comes to the actual writing portion, they are probably only writing it for about maybe that first week, because then you got to go ahead and do the the art design, and then you got to start going ahead and printing these things out. Like all that takes time. So that whole process is probably a month. But the actual writing part for each comic book is a week. So so you're right about that. But with that, definitely you have to have skill. When it comes to writing, you have to have skill. Comes to acting, that's really nothing. So when they're talking about, um, saying like comic book writers, if they can't get it done, it's like all you have to do is just read their works. And that's the thing that really kills me about this whole thing, about making movies based off of books, making movies based off
Comic
of
books.
comic books and stuff. It's like if the comic book was selling, okay, and the character was still around, okay, and mind you, Superman debuted back in the late 30s, and now to this day they're still selling comic book issues. Okay, the character survived all that time.
Right.
Okay, almost a century the character has survived. That means that they must be doing something right. That means they must be doing something right, and that's the thing that kills me. Is that they have the audacity to say that these guys don't have the chops to get it done. And I've been saying it for years. I said when Heroes came out, I said, look, I was like, I'm not sure who's writing this and stuff, but I said, at the end of the day, what they need to do is start taking these comic book guys and making them where they're the main writers, not these Hollywood writers. Because one day I was watching this doc, I'm noticing everybody's working on this film. You know what I'm saying? I'm not talking about the actual doc film. I'm talking about the Superman Lives film. There wasn't one fan. There wasn't one true fan.
Kevin Smith
For the
Kevin
whole thing. Kevin Smith.
And he was the only
Kevin
one to
Smith,
get fired.
But technically, yeah, that's the thing. You know what I'm saying? It's like, but at the end of the day, when they finally say, okay, this is the team we have, this is what we're going to go with, they end up getting rid of the one true fan. Everybody else on it wasn't a fan. It's like you had the guy, the one dude, he says he's from Europe. He was like, I don't know why they kind of hired me for this, because I'm from Europe. I never read a Superman comic book. So I actually told them that I might be the wrong guy for this. And they're like, no, that's perfect. That's exactly what we want. We want you to bring something different, something new, something edgy and stuff. And I'm like, you guys are going way off topic when it comes to this. It's like, you guys realize you're doing a Superman film? Like everybody. Tim Burton, he said he wasn't one of the other writers, the first writer they had, or I should say the second writer after Kevin Smith. When they tasked him for the job, he even said that he was talking to Tim Burton, he was like, yeah, I remember I was talking to him, and he says that, I didn't want to do another superhero film, and what I'm saying, because that's that he kind of felt like it was kind of beneath him and stuff. But he kind of asked me, well, why'd you do two Batmans, and why you tasked to do this? He's like, well, I felt like with the first Batman, I made some mistakes. So with the second Batman, I felt like I could correct those mistakes. You know what I'm saying? And then with this film, like I feel like I could go ahead and and bring this character really to life and this and that. I'm like, but at the end of the day, you're not a fan,
right?
You're not a fan, and you're doing this film, So that means everything you're gonna do is the opposite of what this character is gonna be about.
What's so funny is that everybody was trying so hard to be quote unquote original and make a different take on Superman that it just bothers my mind. I'm like, you're taking an icon, or you're taking a person. It's like saying, I really like this baseball player. Okay, so this baseball player, I'm now gonna dress him as a ninja. It's like that's two totally different things. It's like you just said you love the baseball player, but you want to change him to a ninja. So technically that means you don't like the baseball player. And it's the same thing with Superman. It's like John Peters says he loved Superman and he wanted to make a different Superman because he didn't want to be his Superman to be like the other Superman. It's like that has nothing to do with that has nothing to do with it.
It's not the whole concept for them making this crazy version of Superman was one big oxymoron. It didn't make any sense. It's like on one side they're making a Superman film, but then at the end of the day they're trying to make a film that was not Superman. Right. I always kept hearing their references like, oh, I had the giant head and I got it from this film. Saying what Brainiac's head was gonna be like. Saying when this dude's talking about, oh, I want the giant spider because it reminded me of 20,000.
He must have been watching like Animal Week that week. I mean, I know back then that wasn't out, but he must have been at the zoo or something because everything was animals with him. He's like, I want
Well, he was probably watching a lot of National Geographic. Like he was definitely like he wanted to fight polar bear. Saying they should be fighting this. Spiders. They're all they're very scary. So I'm like shit. I'm saying I'm like. Like the ideas what people had, what they're getting inspired to do with the film, is from everywhere else except from what the character was. It's amazing. Not one person saying, I'm gonna take this idea of the character that I read in the comic books. Not one person said that. They said, I'm gonna go. I want the giant spider because I always thought of it like kind of like King Kong. When he comes crashing through the gate and he scares everybody. I want that kind of iconic moment. I wanted the 20,000 Leagues thing. Yeah, I could say even Tim Burton. He said, "Oh, I must have been watching a lot of whatever and stuff.
Old horror
I must have been
movies,
inspired to, yeah. Oh, that with the giant head, and you seen a floating head in that one movie and stuff. And then I'm like, it's funny because you're getting inspired by all this, except for the one thing you should be looking for inspiration from, which is the actual character,
Right.
Superman. And that's the thing that was bugging me out. That's the thing that was like really tripping me out. I'm like, I'm hearing everybody else, you know what I'm saying? Oh, I kind of want to do it like this. I kind of want to do it like this. Throughout the whole film, I mean, anytime they made a reference about Richard Donner Superman, they were asking Tim Burton. He's like, oh, he kept gigging on it. He kept dissing the man's film. Oh, the tinfoil? Yeah, I remember Marlon Brando. I kept thinking, you know what I'm saying, he was going to explode.
Oh, because of popcorn.
Because he was like, like a, a popcorn and stuff. And I'm thinking like, man, you just really hated Superman at the end of the day.
And that's
like you were the one person watching that movie when it first came out, thinking to yourself, man, this movie's ridiculous. And that's the impression I got, because he didn't want to go ahead and do anything. He wanted to go so far away from what he did, it was unreal. And from what it sounded like, the direction they were going was exactly that. Was just way out. Way out.
Yeah, it was like half Superman, half not even a little bit Superman. And a lot just like all this combination of ideas from, a person who loves horror film, a producer who loves to just be different and just have his say. It seems like a lot of the time John Peters was just like, well, yeah, I want to do this because that's what I do. And I feel like whatever movies besides Batman, because he helped produce Batman, and whatever movies he did before that just helped his ego be like, I know what I'm saying. I know what I'm doing. So anything I think of is going to help this movie. And so like all his ideas to himself is like, yeah, that's going to make the movie work. And to everybody else in that film was like, this is just way too crazy. Like when Kevin Smith said it was, he was like, yeah, I went to Warner Brothers with all the notes, and they were like, why is Brainiac killing a bear? He's like, oh, because Peters wanted him to have protection in his Fortress of Solitude. It's like, why would Superman need guards? Like, why would he need protection? So like everything he's saying is like, is so out there, and that was the thing. It was just like, he's just saying all these crazy things, and it's because of Batman. He helped produce Batman. Batman was a big box office smash, and then he just took that and was like, all right, let me do something else. What's funny about that Batman story was he was like, yeah, the famous line when Michael Keaton picks him up and he says, I'm Batman. He's like, the original line was supposed to be, I'm Batman, motherfucker. But Warner Brothers wanted me to take out motherfucker. But I was like, the kids are gonna be like, oh, that's gonna be so cool. I was just like, oh my god.
You would have lost the kids right there, because with the motherfucker, the shit would have been rated R and stuff. So it's like, you realize that they wouldn't be able to see that film.
But in his mind,
yeah, this guy, you could tell he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing.
Yep.
And it's not, and I don't want to say it's because he's a hairdresser.
No.
That's the man's profession. But there's a lot of people who have jobs on the side, but they're very knowledgeable of what they're doing. It's like they could do other stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's like the president of the UFC, he was an aerobics instructor once upon a time, and now he's running the UFC. And he's doing a pretty damn good job at it. So people can go off like the script of what their normalcy, their job is, and be very good at what they're doing. But this is clearly a guy that, look, he married money, and with that money, he ended up, becoming a producer, and he doesn't know what he's doing. Right. And he's on some mad pseudo trip where he's like, oh, I got all this, power and stuff, and I'm going power craze, and I'm just gonna make shit happen because it's what I find cool. It's not because it's not because I think the audience are gonna like this. It's because I'm gonna.
But
like
he's
this.
also he's also a character himself, because like the stuff that he was like doing, like they were saying he would just put somebody in a headlock, and he's like, oh yeah, I've been in a street fight. When you're in a street fight, I lived on the streets. Sometimes you just gotta put somebody in a chokehold, to get them into that mentality of what I want Superman to be like.
I mean,
it's just like, what the hell?
Look, listen. I mean, I seen him now. The older version of him now. I seen pictures of him from back in the day. Look, I don't want anybody to believe for 1 second this dude's ever been in a street fight. I can already tell by looking at the guy, but he has never been in a street fight. You know, he's probably trained before in martial arts. It seems like, you know, because he was practicing a lot of his jiu-jitsu moves on really like guys who were not even about that. You know what I'm saying? Like they probably never been in a fight in their entire life. And I guess he was getting some kind of bully trip by going ahead and picking on weaker people. Yeah. Especially people who, it's like, even if they hit you back, even if they were capable of fighting back, they're not, because their jobs are on the line, you know? So that's the thing that was like really tripping me about this guy. Like I said, he was just on some power trip the whole time. I mean, it's like Tim said that, you know, he didn't really like talking to him. There's not one person ever said, there wasn't one person in the entire time that they were doing this doc that ever said anything nice about this guy. Not one person. You know, it's just the guy didn't know what he was talking about. The guy had these crazy ideas. I mean, the guy went ahead and, you know, even his kids sound like they got raised similar to what to the way he is, because they said that the kids came in and they're over here improving, like, you know, conceptual art and stuff, you know, and they didn't even acknowledge the artists who are making these pictures and stuff. It's like, God, man, it's like this guy here, like, you know, is the guy, if you couldn't write a guy like this better. And that's the thing I love about real life. You couldn't make this guy up even if you tried. You know, like the way he was throughout the whole you know, the whole doc was just insane. And then you knew every time he talked, there was like bullshit coming out of his mouth. Oh, I didn't tell Kevin Smith this. I didn't tell Kevin Smith that. And then meanwhile, all that stuff that Kevin Smith says ends up coming true. You see it in the films. You see it in the films. You know. It's like, that's insane. Oh, like you said, I didn't tell, you know, Superman that, you know, that I didn't say that Superman shouldn't fly. Meanwhile, in the final versions and stuff,
he just jumps high.
He's jumping.
Yeah. He's jumping from rooftop.
So that's not you, right? So that's not you. You know, that's not you, right? And Brainiac, you know, the tentacle arms he has, that's like a spider, right? Come on.
And the fact that the suit was like more a mechanical suit, like he had the regeneration suit for most of the movie. You know, it was like...
Yeah, I mean, everything was like to your specifications, you know? So what are you talking about? You know? It's like now they're creating the film that you went in and tasked them to do. And now they're trying to make the best out of it. And it's like I said, the whole thing, like, oh, God, man, I keep hearing this guy talk. I just want to punch him in the face. You know? Like, please, by all means, try that with me like you did with them. Because you're just beyond annoying.
And I find it funny that he calls like Kevin Smith. He's like, oh yeah, he's an amateur writer. It's like, well, what are you trying to write then? Because if a guy who's, you could tell was devoted to comic books is giving you an exact, at least trying to work with you, because he was like, look, you know, I had Brainiac in it, I had Deadshot in it, I had Batman in it, you know, I had all this stuff. You know, Doomsday, and he had everything close to the comic book as possible, and you're just like, no, that sucks, no, I don't like that, change that. You know, it's like, what are you trying to write? And it just goes back to, like, they were so hell-bent on making this different that, you know, and even the fact that, I mean, I'm surprised even Kevin Smith said Tim Burton, because I remember they were like, well, who did you think, you know, was going to direct? And he was like, oh, Tim Burton. I mean, Kevin Smith was coming from a place where he was like, well, you know, look what he did with Batman. You know, before that Batman movie with Michael Keaton, you had the Adam West Batman, and he definitely added that dark tone, that kind of like just different thing.
That's where he messed up. I mean, as a fan, that's not the person I would have wanted to task.
And especially this around 98.
I mean, as a fan,
99.
I was like, really? You suggested this guy?
And it's funny too.
You know what I'm saying, there was nothing about. I was like, no, there's nothing about this guy's films that really stands out. Superman, like, he screams Superman. Let me make a Superman film. All this guy knows how to do is a dark film. I mean, Tim Burton, the second writer had saying about Tim, he's like, oh yeah, also I wanted. Oh, the other reason why he wanted to do Superman too, Tim Burton, because remember he said he didn't want to do the comic book films anymore. He said all his other films were dark, right? So he wanted to make a lighter film, and he felt Superman. You know, since Batman was always in at night, he was always in the shadow of in the shadows, and Superman was always flying above the clouds, and he was always in the light. That he could finally make a picture that wasn't dark, which I thought was funny, because what he ends up at the end of the day doing is making a dark film.
Right? Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, come on, all you know how to do is dark. I mean, the most lightest film I think he's ever done was probably Big
And
Fish.
Big Eyes.
You know, and that
Big Eye.
yeah, Big
Yeah,
Eye,
or Blue Eyes. I forget what.
and yeah, and they both had their you know, kind of they had that is interesting take.
Yeah.
On like I guess how he views the world, like you know what I'm saying, like this kind of weird
Quirky. He's quirky. He's weird. He's quirky.
Yeah.
I mean, he even said it. He's like, look, I
This
live
gothic
in
kind of film,
England.
gothic.
I hardly leave my house. I'm a very I feel like I'm an alien myself among people. That's why I keep to myself. So he's very much an outsider. Keep to himself kind of guy, which doesn't fit for the Superman mythology. Superman kind of deals with being an outsider, but in a different way. He's more of like Superman. The thing about Superman is that he always dealt with himself being different as the cause. He's like, look, but I'm different from everybody, but the reason is because I'm here to help. I'm here to help, and that's the greater goal. Is for me to help humanity. It never was a contemplation of who am I, what's happening, like. And people, and it's funny because they always equated that to him being bland. Like every time I heard them bring that up in the doc, it was like you're talking about two different things. Like you're talking about you're talking about certain ideals, and then you're talking about how Superman 3 sucked because he was fighting a robot, or there was never really a fight. There's an easy fix to that. You can still keep Superman the same way and have him fight somebody who could actually fight back. That's all really that was missing. I mean, that's what they said with Superman Returns, when they were like talking about Superman Returns, and they were like, oh, it was weird because it played it kind of safe and it was kind of a different take on it. I think even Nicolas Cage was talking about that in that clip that they had. They're like, yeah, it was just kind of weird and different. And even Kevin Smith, he was like, yeah, I think Bryan Singer forgot that Superman fights. I mean, he fought he fought an island of kryptonite, but I think he forgot that Superman actually fights people. And that's the thing, is like they always equate fighting and his morality to be the same thing. It's like, oh, Superman's not fun because he's always the good guy and he never fights anybody. It's like, no, you can still make him the good guy and have him fight people, and it's gonna be a good movie. You just gotta trust that it's been like that in the comics. It's gonna work.
Yeah, I mean, name one Rocky film except for the fifth and stuff that Rocky was never the good guy. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the fifth, he was still a good guy. The fifth did bad for other reasons. You know what I'm saying? But all the other ones, they did perfect. So it's like, I don't understand. That character's always stayed the same. Same thing with Rambo. Like, these characters always stay the same. And people always watch these films.
And unfortunately, at the time, they're basing it off of the Superman 3, Superman 4, which is like all the way skewed to the good side, the jolly side. Like they're basing it on an extreme, because 3 and 4 was an extreme of him being too good or it being a little too corny. And so they went the whole opposite way with this. Going back to Superman Returns, I found that funny that Bryan Singer, they were talking about how he always took out a picture of Nicolas Cage in that suit to always kind of remind Warner Brothers whenever they were telling him like, oh, I don't know if you should do this. The costume, the S looks kind of weird, looks kind of dark. And he would just snap his fingers to his assistant and he would be like, you're about to make that movie. Remember that you were about to make that Superman. So now that makes sense on why his movie just was shit, because he was basically using a shit reference to basically give him carte blanche to do whatever he want. It was like, oh, I can't have an island full of kryptonite? PA, get over here. You were about to make Nicolas Cage as Superman in that crazy ass costume. I'm sorry, Mr. Singer. I'm sorry. Go do what you want. Do what you want. So it's crazy how.
Well, it was smart on his part. To do
oh
that,
yeah.
Like if I'm trying to make a film, I would use a reference of a film that would have been bad, and I would have been thrown in their face every time. Now, unfortunately, it worked in a negative way because obviously Superman, Returns wasn't good at all. You know what I'm saying? That was like, I'm not gonna say it was the worst Superman film, but it's definitely up there, and that's saying a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing about that was like, yes, he was going out there saying this. Yes, he went ahead and it was I mean, it seemed like every director, every person in the film was kind of gigging on the other. It's like, Bryan Singer's playing homage, saying to Richard Donner. But meanwhile, Tim Burton was trashing the man, and he was also trashing Bryan Singer. But then if you would go in and talk about Brian Singer, about Tim Burton, he'd be like, well, look at his version, what that was going to be. You know what I'm saying? As a matter of fact, I think he did. I think he trashed his version. Because matter of fact, with the picture, he obviously
he's trashing it.
His whole basis was to trash that. So it's like they're all kind of like getting on each other and stuff. But at the end of the day, the only good and true original Superman movie was the first. Was the first with the Richard Donner one. That's still to this day the only Superman film that I liked. Was the Richard Donner. I mean, it's the first two. The third and the fourth. It goes back to that. It didn't do good, not because of what the character stood for. It didn't do good because of the story
and the style, and the style that it was portrayed. It was just too hokey.
I mean, the third didn't do good because one, you're doing a Superman film, but it's really a Richard Pryor film because Superman was hardly in that film. And matter of fact, I think when they went ahead and were talking about making the film, they were so heavily wanting Richard Pryor and make a Richard Pryor film and stuff that I forgot. There was like a behind the scenes of one of the films, and they were talking about
I remember,
about Richard Pryor. Like, they really wanted Richard Pryor real, like, desperately bad in that one film, but it ended up just being a Richard Pryor film in a Superman film. And that doesn't work.
At that time, Warner Brothers had a contract with Richard Pryor to do 3 movies. I forgot what the other 2 were, but they wanted to keep him around, so they decided. I think they were deciding to give him like a co-starring role in the Superman movie, and little by little, they just started giving him more lines and giving him more, play to kind of entice him to stay at Warner Brothers. So it literally became Richard Pryor featuring Superman, Superman 3. So that was again, it's just Warner Brothers and the studios, doing what they please, trying to. Look at what John Peters did. John Peters even said in the interview where he was like, I was basically acting like a director until we found the director, so that way by the time he would come on board, we would have something to present him. And I'm just like, that's ass backwards. Like, you hired the director, you hire the team, you get them together, get the vision, and then go from there. You don't make believe you're the director and then hire the Tim Burton and then be like, oh yeah, all that shit that we did, that's gone. But he was smart because he knew that if money was spent already on all this stuff, that it would be harder for Tim Burton to kind of change things and be like, I don't really like that, or I don't want to do that. It would be more of a John Peters type of film. And I think that's why he did it that way, because he's such a sneaky little guy. He's like, it comes on, and
Well, I wouldn't say he was smart. He was slick.
He was slick.
I'll use that word because he definitely was a smart. And I think even at one point he referenced it in the doc when he was talking about Kevin Smith. He wanted him to do a reading, which I thought that was crazy. Because when Kevin Smith first said that, I didn't even catch what he said until he repeated it again, and then he emphasized on what he was talking about. And I was like, wait, he's actually talking about you reading him a story. That's insane. You want him to read you the whole script, and he's got his fingers up there, and he's pretending like he's in a movie theater, and he's like, I don't like this, I don't like that. But what did he say? He said, oh, the reason why I want you to read me the script.
I don't like reading.
or
I'm not good at reading.
I'm not a good reader. I'm not good at reading. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you're not smart. You're slick. And he's real slick. That's how he got to be a producer in the first place. He was slick enough to marry and land on Barbara Streisand. He was slick enough to obviously use her money to go ahead and get a producer status. And now you're slick enough as a producer to make these god awful films.
Yep. And then he lucked out. He lucked out with Batman, and then like he just rode that on.
Yeah, all that is pure luck. That's it. It's not like skill. He's luck.
Well, what was interesting was that he picked Michael Keaton to be Batman. So that was the only thing that I found interesting, where he was like, no, I was the one. I was the one that I saw him in a movie, and I thought that his eyes, just told that, like, yeah, he must have been in a street fight, and just picked him to be Batman based off of that movie that he saw. And that was the only thing that I was like, well, you know what? Out of all the stuff that you did, that was a bold choice that worked, because that character that Michael Keaton was able to play, for the times, it worked as Batman, as Bruce Wayne. But almost everything else that he said that came out of his mouth, I was like, that's horrible. That doesn't make any sense. What the hell are you talking about? Jesus Christ, this guy's insane. And I think that's why he did it that way, because, at the end of the day, he was able to play, that character. And I think that's why he did it that way, because, every almost everything else that he said that came out of his mouth, I was like, that's horrible. That doesn't make any sense. What the hell are you talking about? Jesus Christ, this guy's insane. and the fact that his choice again was Nicolas Cage to play Superman, and I think it was Tim Burton's as well. I think Tim Burton wanted to work with Nicolas Cage on Superman, and it was so funny them talking about the backlash that Michael Keaton had when there was no internet and everybody's like, oh, this is gonna be bad, and he's like, yeah, it's the same thing with Nicolas Cage. Like, I felt Nicolas Cage would have brought a different style to it, but again, it just, you're making a different movie because Nicolas Cage does not have that Superman persona. Don't get me wrong, Nicolas Cage, great actor, his choice of work in the last decade has been, but you know what? It makes sense because they showed a clip when he won the Oscar, and he said that I hope that that we're able to make I forgot, I can't remember verbatim what he said, but he said that he hopes that they can make more interesting and different type of films that are like more experimental or something like that. So when he came on and he was like, yeah, I wanted to be Superman, but not the regular Superman. I want to be different. It's like, well, yeah, of course, you're on the right team. You and freaking Tim Burton are going to create this crazy ass Superman that has, that's not going to be Superman, and, with the long hair. And granted, at the time, Superman had long hair in the comic books because he came back from the dead. Yeah. But this was still, it was like, again, I mean, you guys seen the pictures, like Nicolas Cage with long hair in the Superman outfit. It was just like, nah, this is weird. And the fact that like the funniest thing was like when they showed the footage of him trying it on, like trying on the costume. he's like when he's feeling the cape, he's like, yeah, it's like a baby's cloth. I like it. It's comforting. It's like it's cool that you could see how his brain works and getting into the character. But like the funniest part was when they were talking about Clark Kent, and he's like wearing the Clark Kent outfit, and he's like, I feel like I should be wearing and Tim Burton's like, yeah, just wear the t-shirt underneath the suit jacket. He's like, yeah, I like this. It's different. It's like this character would be Clark Kent. So it was like Clark Kent was gonna be with like a Hawaiian shirt wearing, like this really over the top doofus. And they're like, yeah, nobody believed this guy would be Superman. It's like, nobody believes you would be Superman. Like I think you're forgetting the part that then you have to become Superman, and we're still going to believe you're not Superman. Yeah, you could probably cake it as Clark Kent, but sorry to break it to you. You still got to play Superman. But yeah, it was just...
I mean, that's crazy, though, because like even I met in the interview, he said, when they're talking about Superman didn't get made, he's like, I didn't want to make a Superman film. Like, he admitted that.
Yeah.
Saying, like, we weren't trying to make a Superman film. Then I'm like, Vin, what the fuck film were you trying to make? You know what I'm saying? It's like, Vin, what's the point in making a Superman film? Why don't you make another film and call it something else instead of Superman? Vin, maybe you guys might have something going on. You know what I'm saying? Something workable.
And
that's the thing that kills me.
And that's
it's like, even when they're in that, we talking about that dress rehearsal thing, and he's doing that, there's like, it furthers the fact how much they hate the characters as it is, because they were making fun of everybody from the Superman world.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
From Perry to Lois to Clark to Superman. It's like they're all gigging on the entire comic book franchise.
They gigged on the costume.
Like,
they're like, oh, the underwear is outside, which they still gig on today, and that's the reason why we have the Superman without the underwear on the outside, which is not really underwear. Like, that was just, I don't know, whatever. It's like, I hate when they say it's like the underwear's on the outside. I was like, to me, he looks a little bit more weird that now it's like his package is like on full display right now. Because there's nothing there to kind of make it look like it's something, And the fact that they were going to give him basketball shorts. Like, I remember that was one of their notes. They're like, oh, why don't you give him basketball shorts?
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell?
It's like, it just goes back to the fact that it ended up being so crazy because at the end of the day, we're not trying to make a Superman film. It's like what they want to do was take the bankability of the Superman name and use that, because the name Superman is already going to have people come to the theaters. Right. So you're going to automatically make a certain amount. Now, how much more you're going to make after that depends on other factors. You know what I'm saying? One, if the story's good. The other is who's gonna play the character. The other is like how much what the action sequence is gonna be like. The other is like the effects. You know what I'm saying? Like these are other factors that will make it even more of a bankable film. But with the Superman name alone, people just that first weekend they're gonna make money. Will they make like as much as they spent for the duration of the film? Probably not. But you're gonna at least make half that money just off of that name alone.
Yeah.
Now the rest is where all these other factors come in. And that's the thing about it. It's like they wanted that Superman name. Because if they would have made another superhero film and called it something else, they wouldn't have made as much as if they would have put that Superman name, attach it with it.
And
but at the same time, that's also the problem, is that the fact that, yes, now with the Superman name, you'll make more money with that name. But at the same time, you're going to piss off a lot of people because you're not making a Superman film. If you would have made another character, you guys would have made it up. Who the hell are we to tell you what this character should be like?
I think inevitably that was the double-edged sword for them. Is like they wanted to bank on Superman, thinking that would help them out. But I feel like that's the reason why it never got made, because at the end of the day, it was so left field that Warner Brothers, and it's interesting to see that like at the time when all these bombs were happening for them, like The Postman, and they were just showing like all these films that basically just flopped and was costing them money and they couldn't make it anymore. And the fact that it was just so left field for them that they were like, we don't want another bomb, and this is just too much experimental. Like we actually want the original Superman. It's just so funny to think about that. But going back to my point is that if this wasn't a Superman movie, it probably would have been a really interesting hero film. Like, I'm not gonna lie, there were points that I was looking at it, and the closer you get to the doc, the closer you get to see like some final forms of certain things. Like the Superman costume that you see in the picture is not the Superman costume that was the final version of it. But just thinking of the story and thinking of the sets, like if it was a different movie, it actually would have probably been a really good movie. If you get rid of everything that's Superman, which wasn't a lot, it was like, okay, he had to die. You had this character called Brainiac, but the way he looked, you could have called him anything else because it was nothing like the Brainiac in the comics. You had Doomsday, but even Doomsday looked different. Doomsday wasn't the Doomsday in the comics. And even Superman himself, he wasn't really the Superman you were used to. So I feel like if they would have just made that story of an alien who came from another planet that exploded, lands on Earth, and has and finds out that he's not from this world, and has this complex thing just that Tim Burton is always good at, is like feeling like the outsider, and then having this spider-like technological, because that was the thing too, they were going to make Krypton like this weird and crazy, like they had so many different ideas for Krypton that were like interesting at one point, but at the same time is like, well, this is just way out there. This is like an art film kind of like version of Krypton. But again, if it wasn't Superman and you had that, it would have been really, really good. And I think all the ideas that
I don't know.
I think all the ideas that they had, if they were able to play with it and make it so far away from Superman, they could have even changed the whole fact of like the planet exploded because there wasn't going to be kryptonite. So technically you didn't even need the planet to explode. You could have changed a whole bunch of things. I even like the idea of K, the robot that was with them. I mean, for a Superman character, it was stupid. I was like, all right. I mean, he has robots. He's created robots. This K robot was like, it could have worked. But again, if it wasn't a Superman character or wasn't based on Superman's world, I think that would really been a cool thing to add to a superhero, that a superhero basically has this machine that grows up with him, or at least changes his body to grow with age. So like at first it's like the size of a teddy bear, and then it kind of grows, and then when he dies, it melds with him to bring him back to life, and it becomes a part of his suit until he's ready, back at full force, and then it releases him. So those ideas I feel were interesting, but not as a Superman film. Like it's just it wouldn't work. It would just feel too weird, and the audience, who are expecting at least some sort of Superman. Like it's one thing to change, like Man of Steel, although I don't like it, comparing Man of Steel to this is like, at least there's something that people can look at and be reminded of Superman. Where
No, I don't know. I don't agree with that right there
no, I'm
because
saying compared to Tim Burton's film. I'm not saying like compared to
no. I even compared to Tim Burton's film, there was actually some things I did like about what he's bringing to the table with this, and there was mostly I didn't like what he I hated what he was bringing to the table
yeah.
with this, you know. But like as far as it being like a separate film, going to that first, like let's say it was called something else, I'm still not sure if it will work out because some of the ideas he had, like I think with the world on Krypton, I think that would have been interesting what he could have done with that. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because he could have done his weird style,
Yeah.
and I mean it's an alien race, and I think that fits for that. Um, you know, with the story, yeah, I think it probably would have worked out with this
But
as far as
that's
the
the
story
thing. But
goes.
that's the
You
thing.
know
They
what I'm
could
saying?
always change it
Because it's so out there that even with the slight similarities to Superman, like kid going from alien world to here and the way it explodes like Krypton, I think it would have been so out of the world that people wouldn't even associate the two films to be together. But there was like some other things I didn't quite like they were like talking about with the concepts of like some, especially with like the some of the suit designs, like the fact that the cape was gonna become a weapon.
Oh, that was stupid. No, but
know?
that again, that was a John. That was a
I'm
John.
like if I would see that.
That's
Yeah,
John Peters.
or the S, you could take it off your chest and throw it like
That's
a boomerang,
John
like
Peters.
you would your Wonder
Yeah,
Woman.
that's John Peters. But again, if it wasn't a Superman film, they could change that. That's what I'm saying. It's like every weird thing that you're talking about is because they had to make some sort of connection to Superman. You get rid of Superman, they don't need the cape that to throw. They don't even need the S. It could just be its own thing. It could be its own design, its own. There's nothing for them to hold back to be like, well, we kind of need the cape.
Oh, that's true.
Well, we kind of need him to the Krypton to explode. Well, we kind of need to call him Brainiac. We kind of need. They don't need any of that. It's a totally original idea. You can do whatever you want. You can make him look whatever you want. You can. He doesn't have to be Clark Kent anymore. He can be whatever you want him to be. He doesn't even need an alter ego. Maybe that's just his thing. He's that guy.
Yeah, just being like an alien and stuff, you know.
And I feel like with Tim Burton's mind, it really could have worked. Like if it was just that movie, it probably would have been a really, really good movie if it was nothing that had nothing to do with Superman. But the fact that it had Superman,
if it would have been like an original picture and stuff, and not a Superman picture, you know what? Think about it right now. Yeah, it would have been a real great movie. But going back to the fact that it is a Superman film, no,
it's horrible. It's horrible because it's a Superman film. It's horrible.
I mean, just the fact. I remember at one point they were talking about when it comes to the budget cuts, and they're talking about instead of blowing up 14 buildings, we're just gonna have them fighting the fifth floor. And I'm thinking to myself, 14 buildings? Are you insane? They were pretty much gonna make Man of Steel.
Well, yeah, they got
that.
I was gonna say they got their wish with that, in Man of Steel.
They're gonna blow up 14 buildings. I'm like, they were going crazy with that. You know what I'm saying? But and then like I said, with the weapons of his costumes and the fact we're gonna have him jump everywhere and stuff. You know what I'm saying? And they were gonna like change up his powers, and he was gonna be like this confused alien child and stuff, which is Man of Steel. All the stuff that was getting knocked on about this, I'm seeing a lot of similarities to Man of Steel. That's why I said I don't think Man of Steel would have been better than this. Now this film never came out, so we don't really exactly know how this whole thing would have worked out. It's a big what if, but I feel that if this film would have been made, I actually probably would have liked this film better than Man of Steel.
Really?
And I'm gonna tell you why. One is because going back to that costume, the final costume opposed to the Man of Steel costume, I hate the Man of Steel costume because it's so dark. It's so dark. Like they were showing online, they're showing the Google images and whatnot. The Superman they have here, and then the Batman, and his costume is so dark that it almost seems black.
Yeah.
I'm like it feels it's like I'm looking at Batman without the mask.
It's like a dark navy blue. Yeah.
And exactly. And then meanwhile, I thought the Superman Returns costume was real dark, but compared to that, it actually looks a lot lighter.
Well, yeah,
because you take the Superman Returns costume and compare it to the Christopher Reeves costume, it's a lot darker than that. But it's like they just kept going down the dark realm. Now going to the Tim Burton Superman. Now everybody was kind of like, even I got caught up on that too, because I seen that first image, the image that Bryan Singer was passing around that picture, and he was saying, "Look, you guys couldn't make this film, so shut your mouth and I'm gonna do my thing." Okay. Yeah. That wasn't even the final product of the costume. That was just one version.
That was just concept.
Yeah. It was a concept. But when it evolved, they showed kind of like what the final look of it would
And that's
be.
a Superman.
And I don't know if that would have been the final look, but I'm looking at it and I'm like, this actually looks fucking great.
I looked at it.
This is exactly how I see Superman. It's a bright red cape. The blue in it doesn't look cartoonish at all. It looks like it looks hot. He's got the physique, he looks good. And then they even show Nicolas Cage without the wig.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it looks better. Like, like he looks ridiculous with that wig. He needs to leave that shit off. But without the wig, it looks pretty cool. I mean, I still would have went ahead and tried to enhance his hair and give him a full set of hair.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because like a receding line Superman, I don't buy that.
He doesn't have super hair.
But
he doesn't have super hair.
But I do like the fact that mind you, with Nicolas Cage, if you ever seen Con Air, some of the other films he had, like Face Off, he's always had a very lean body, which is what Christian Bale was portraying in Batman. That's what everybody loved about Christian Bale's Batman, was he actually had the body of Batman. And where Michael Keaton, he might have portrayed a better Batman, but he didn't have the look. So what this dude was talking about, Michael Keaton looked like a fighter. I'm like, please, Michael Keaton's got a wimp's body. You know what I'm saying? Like, he doesn't have a body. Christian Bale had the body. I felt like with Nicolas Cage, he has the body. He's very lean. He's very physically fit. He looks like he could be Superman, like as far as the body wise goes.
Yeah.
So I actually like that costume. Like I was actually surprised. I'm like, wow, that's the final image of it. That shit.
And
looked
you could
good.
see the yellow,
that looks
the yellow
good.
that's present in his belt and the
Yeah,
S.
I'm like,
it was.
He looks like Superman. I mean, still to me, I would have actually gotten somebody else to play him. Yeah. I would have never went with him. There was another actor around that time. I don't know his name, but he always, to me, seemed more like, I always pictured him being Superman. He's not really famous or nothing like that. He was up and coming actor. He has some starring roles in other films like Aspen and Stream. I don't know if anybody knows what his name is, but it's not Peter Bergier. It's the other guy that was really starring in that film. But him, I always felt like he could be that because he kind of looked like a Christopher Reeves. You know what I'm saying? Maybe he could have. You know what I'm saying? But at that time, actors weren't really like getting fit to play a role. And that's the only thing I can say about Nicolas Cage. And I felt like with this film, they were actually wanting to have a fit-looking Superman. That's also why they kind of casted Nicolas Cage, too, because he was a fit-looking actor. Everybody else kind of, when they were playing action roles, they didn't have that really fit look. Like Bruce Willis, he's in Die Hard. He really has your average, he's a guy that he's not fat, he's not skinny. He's just your average kind of looking guy in this situation. And that's kind of, when they put him in that role, that's what they were going for anyway. Because I seen up behind the scenes and the director's cut and whatnot, they were saying we want an average guy in these extraordinary situations. But with Nicolas Cage, they wanted to go with that a type of actor that actually could physically look like Superman. Maybe not in the face, because obviously he doesn't look like Superman in the face, and I don't think any of them were kidding themselves when it came to that. But when it comes to the body, I believe that he could be Superman. Even though Superman's technically physically a little bigger, than Nicolas Cage, I mean, that was such a step up from what they were doing before, when it came to his physique. So I actually like that, And when it comes to the Man of Steel one, no, I don't. I hated that guy. I hated him so much. I hated that costume. I hated, like this, the kind of like his persona, how he was being, persona. And I felt like the persona he had for Man of Steel would have been something similar, kind of like with Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage would play a more of a tormented Superman. So I feel in both aspects, in regards to both films, I felt like they would have been even when it comes to like a conflicting Superman. Like they were both a tie. Now with the costume, obviously I would give it to Tim Burton's. Now when it comes to the destruction of the city, which a lot of fans didn't like, and I sure as hell didn't like in Man of Steel, obviously both of them would have been equal in that. Because 14 buildings, that's all of Metropolis. That's all of Metropolis. Like you just did what they did in Man of Steel. You're just gonna do it like 10 years earlier, or even more so 15 years earlier. So it's like I said, like it's really hard to say what would have been the better version of the two. But I think at the end of the day, they obviously one was shit, in my opinion, was shit, and this one in my opinion would have been shit too, just based off of where they were going with it. But I feel like maybe for like the casual fans who are not like big Superman fans or whatnot. Now I feel like if you were to put two films and you have them both play out, I feel like maybe the Tim Burton one actually had
No
the
way.
edge.
There's no way. It's too different.
Yes.
It's too different. That was the whole reason why WB.
No, I'm gonna tell you why. The reason why you would have had the edge, because the action. They were gonna have the action. That's what a lot of fans for Man of Steel. At the end of the day, people don't realize what they liked about it was really just the action. That was it. In this film here with Tim Burton, you're gonna get the action. They were gonna have him fight Brainiac. They were gonna have him fight Giant Spider, which I don't think I would have liked that action, but I think the fans would have. They would have, they was gonna have all these kind of crazy scenes going on. You know what I'm saying? There was gonna be a lot of these action scenes. And mind you, if they would have done this back in '98, like when they were supposed to do it, actually technically the film probably would have been released
2000.
2000. Because they were filming it, they would have gonna film it in '98, but it wouldn't have been released to 2000, maybe even 2001. So if it would have been released around that time, they would have been able to pull off a lot of stuff, and you would have seen a Man of Steel, but they would have done it a lot earlier on. It would have been like really the first Superman film that could pull something like that off. And I feel like, like I said, it's my opinion, I felt like it probably would have done a lot better.
Huh.
You know what I'm saying? As far as the action goes. Because this is, Tim Burton, he's real good at doing action.
He is.
He's really good at doing action.
Is.
And I felt like what Zack Snyder did, I'm like, people were talking about, what he did was never seen. I'm like, I've seen that before in plenty of films. I really have. I feel like if Tim Burton would have done that early on and stuff, just imagine this, a world where this film would have been made. This actually would have been released, okay? If they could have pitched it a little differently, if they could have went ahead and alleviated some of their fears or whatnot, if Tim Burton would have really knew how to sell this film, to the studios, to Warner Brothers, it would have been released. I feel like it would have changed the whole dynamic of the Superman world, period. Because I don't think they would have done Superman Returns. I don't think they would have done Man of Steel. Definitely. I don't think they would have done Man of Steel, and the reason why I say that, because now when it comes to the costume Man of Steel, people saying, it wouldn't have gotten done with the traditional looking Superman. This would have been the film to kind of prove that. This would have been the film to prove that, because now they had a traditional look for Superman. And with that, so they would have pulled it off. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to that, if it would have made money in the box office, it would have been pulled off. And then Man of Steel would have never really went down the way it did, because obviously in this film, all those buildings would have came down. So obviously they would not made that mistake in Man of Steel because of the backlash they would have got from this film.
I see what you're saying, but it's a hypothetical. It's kind of hard because
tormented Superman, that would have never. Yeah, I mean it's hypothetical.
It's hard because it could go either way.
It's a big what if.
Go either way.
It's like
people could have.
It's like you can't save as Superman Lives. Yeah. It's like you can't see Superman Lives is going to be a good Superman film. You can't say it was going to be a bad Superman film, because that never happened. You know what I'm saying? It's all speculation. In my opinion, just based on what I'm hearing, the ideas, who was on task for the project, what they were going to do, and the fact that if you would have released it a lot early on and stuff, like in the early 2000s, this would have been kind of groundbreaking stuff.
Christopher Walken as Brainiac, Chris Rock as Jimmy Olsen, Sandra Bullock as Lois Lane.
Oh yeah, well, man, that was crazy when I was hearing about the casting for the other people. I was like, Christopher Walken as Brainiac. I didn't see that. And Chris Rock, I was like, Jesus. I like their notes. You see how I like how this doc was showing like a lot of the
insider notes.
It was showing exactly how Hollywood thinks, because I was looking at the people they had for Jimmy Olsen, and they had like Tom Everett Scott, Paul Rudd, which is ironic because now he's going to be Ant-Man. They had Matthew Perry because he was on Friends at that time. Josh Charles, you know what I'm saying? And then the interesting ones is then they had like on the bottom the side notes, if he's black, and then they had like Chris Rock, right, which was like their strong go-to because he was getting
especially around that
big
time,
at the time doing a lot of comedies.
He was huge.
Yeah, they were gonna do Marlon Wayne, so this is telling me that they wanted like a lot of like comedic actors. This was gonna be a funny Jimmy Olsen, so they were gonna try and bring that. And then as far as the Lois Lanes, I thought that was kind of funny too, because they also went for another Friends star. It seems like whoever was trying to cast seen like a lot of like WB and a lot of I forgot what network that Friends was on, because they had Courtney Cox was on that list, Julianne Moore, which I thought that was crazy because she's a redhead.
Well, they still did it anyway with Amy Adams.
That's true. That's true. They end up getting their redhead
Yep.
anyway. Even though the one that this dude said he wanted was Sandra
Yeah,
Bullock. But it's funny because she said that she actually turned down the role.
but she'd do it now. He's like, but I'm
But
sure
she
she'd do it now. But she said she'll do it now.
yeah. I don't really know why she turned it down. That's kind of funny to me. She must have like some other project going
Well,
on
I
or
think at
something
that
like
time,
that.
she was again. It was like in the '90s, late '90s. I think she must have had some big movie planned around that time.
Well, yeah, she just I think she just did like Speed 2 around that time and stuff. And she was going into the 90s. I don't know, like she's been in so many films. It's really hard to say.
What's funny
Uh
is they had Kevin Spacey as Lex Luthor, and that actually carried over to Superman Returns.
I mean, even when it goes with the Superman Returns and stuff, like the stuff that goes wrong in these Superman films, you know, um it's not really all the way the actor's fault. Like people blame Brandon Roth for a bad Superman. People blame Kevin Spacey for a bad Lex Luthor. It's just the way the characters approach those characters. You know what I'm saying? It's what their character notes are.
Right.
I do feel like they are to blame because I feel like these actors need to step up. For this film, I'm watching the whole time. I'm watching the doc. I'm like, someone needs to step up and challenge this guy. Man up. And especially with the guy's personality, if they would know how the guy's personality is, he's the type of guy who likes to do the bullying tactics. If you start bullying someone who's a bully, and you could actually bully him a lot harder, you could get him to cave to what you want to do.
Well,
You could get him to bend to your will. And I felt like no one was doing that. Like he went with the safe route with Tim Burton. You know what I'm saying? Tim Burton wasn't like pushing. He was just taking. Same thing with Kevin Smith. Every time he went ahead, he said he did a script and he went and made the changes. He thought all the changes he was doing in the script was stupid. Meanwhile, he did it anyway. Me personally, I would have been like, look, I'm going to walk off right now myself. You don't need to fire me. I'll walk off on myself because I'm not going to waste my time because this is going to be shit. If you want to make a good Superman film, this is the way you're going to have to do it. But I think in general,
it goes
when it
back to the
comes
boss. It goes back to the boss mentality because one of the guys, I forget who it is, but he said it. He was like, when he headlocked somebody, and he was like, a lot of people would ask, why would you let that happen? He's like, it's pretty crazy.
No, and I said that in the beginning. I said,
Yeah.
They were putting up with his shit because
He pays them.
he's the boss. Like it's not, yeah. I mean, look, he could fuck their career and stuff. You know what I'm saying? He's like, oh, you're gonna walk off from my project. Let's see what kind of project you get after this.
Right.
I get that. Even if they weren't the type to do anything back to him as it is. But let's just say they were. The fact that he was in a position where he could fuck them over.
Yeah.
And they were dedicating so much time. That's the thing that was also like bugging me out. Everybody dedicates so much time.
Almost 2
Months.
years. Yeah, almost.
You know what I'm saying?
A year and a
It
half.
wasn't almost. Oh, it was a year. I didn't even know it was that long. That's just insane. You dedicate all that time, and you're just this close about to shoot the fucking thing, and you don't.
Yep.
That's a lot. You know what I'm saying? And they dedicate so much time, and they were getting these paychecks. You know what I'm saying? And they know that they really would have banked down the road.
That's the biz, man.
It's a hard thing to like walk away from. I understand, but me, like I said, I mean, somebody needs to like step up and really put their foot down on him. Not just on him, but in general. Like they need to be stronger salespeople.
Especially when
whatnot.
you're a freelancer. It's like, almost everybody in Hollywood, yeah, they have SAG, they have all these union stuff, but you're technically still a freelance. So when you decide to take a job, you're basically saying to the other jobs, I've decided to take this, and there's no way that you'll know that after this job is done, you'll have another job, or when you'll have another job. I mean, that's just how the business is. So a lot of the times people put up with it because they go, two things can happen. You say, all right, you know what? F you, I don't want to deal with this. Cool, that guy has some clout. He's going to blacklist you. Now you can't get jobs. Or you say, F you, I'm done with this. He doesn't do anything, but now you have nowhere to go. The job that you took, that you kind of said, no thanks to, they're already crewed up. They've already, they're on board for another year, so you can't do that one. And now you're struggling to find another job and hoping that you can get another job. So it's not one of those corporate jobs where you're like, I'm a clerical worker. F this, I'm gonna find another job, and then you go somewhere else, and boom, you're another clerical worker, and you work, for a steady job for 2, 3, or whatever years you work there. In Hollywood, it's a little bit different. It's like there's a thing, me working as an editor and working in some sort of the business. When you get to those 2 weeks before your gig is done, or when you're about to leave, everybody calls that the like, well, better start calling, making those emails like, hey, what's up? We haven't talked in a while. Just want to know if you're crewing up, if you need anybody. I'll be getting off. There's people that a month into they're into that gig. They're already, you're sending out emails. You're like, hey, I'm going to be done in July. Just wanted to know if you'll have anything ready to go by then. So there's a lot of that mentality on why, for the most part, people don't just say to guys like this guy, like the Peters guy, like, you're fucking insane, or you're crazy, or you need to stop, because it's like you're unsure. You're not sure where it can go, and there's a lot of negative than there is a positive. Positive, you have your self-respect and you'll stand up against a quote-unquote bully. But then there's all that other negativity that you're just like, oh crap, I don't know. And people do it. Don't get me wrong. There are people that storm off sets, and there are people that do that. But there's just so much that can go wrong from doing that.
But what about Tim Burton? He even said himself, when you're Tim Burton, you could write your own ticket. Because when they have to get in a budget, they gave him a blank check.
Yeah, but he still had to work with...
You're a bankable name.
But notice he still had to work with Peters. He said, I didn't...
No, he still had to work with Peters, but I felt like he was such a bankable name. I know Hitchcock used to get into a Warner... This is when he was actually working for Warner Brothers. He used to get into it with them all the time, and he was staying his ground. And sure enough, Warner Brothers would cave in each and every single time.
Yeah,
so
but
I don't understand why he couldn't. I don't understand that. Especially after all the hits he give him. He's giving him Batman 2, Beetlejuice, Edward Scissorhands.
Here's the problem. Movie studios rarely have the same execs that stay, and this is the beautiful part of this documentary, is that you get to see how much of a revolving door the business has. When those movies flopped, from the time that they started Superman Lives to the time that they were ready to go to production, you saw all those strings of flops. Remember, he said there was a wall and had all the movies that they had for the whole year. And each movie had a flop. Each movie was just like flop, 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 flop. All those execs got fired. Anybody who had anything to do with those flops, that big of a flop, is gone. So anybody who was like, man, if I can ever give you another job, Tim Burton, I'm going to trust you. You're going to do, I work with you. You're going to do whatever you want. Well, that guy's gone now. that guy doesn't exist anymore in your world. He's somewhere else. And now there's a new guy who's trying to prove himself as the tough dog, as the new exec on the block. And yeah, you're Tim Burton, but guess what? I'm an executive and I want to make my mark. And guess what? I'm going to use you as an example, that even though you're Tim Burton, I'm the big dog. I'm the guy that gives you the money. That's the difference. Is that it's so hard, and it takes a lot to make a movie work. And that's why Marvel has been so much praised, and Disney so much praised on how they're able to do that, because that doesn't happen in every production company, or that doesn't happen in every movie. You have so much that happens behind the scenes that, just like Superman Lives, it's a wonder on how it even made it, And that's the difference, is like when you have the right execs, when you have the right production company, when you have an open kind of discussion with your directors, with your writers, with your actors, then things can kind of go a little bit faster, and you have a good movie. But when you have a studio that's like, Waterworld flop or Postman flop, you're fired. You were the writer of this, you're fired. You were you're fired. You're fired. It's like, it's a revolving door, and everybody's always trying to prove they're better. Just like Peters, where he was like, I wanted to be different. His whole thing was, he was like, I wanted to be remembered for doing my version of Superman. That's a lot of execs in Hollywood. I want to be known for me. I want my name to be in the credits, that people look at it and they're like, they know my name. And they're just a producer, and they want the same name as a Nicolas Cage, as a Tim Burton. They want that too. So again, it goes back to like why certain people put up with certain things, or why is like, well, why is this person taking shit? He's Tim Burton, he's Nicolas Cage, he's this. Well, at the end of the day, they still got a boss, and their boss can still be a dick. and they still have that option. You want to leave or you want to stay. So that part is what I really loved about this documentary, because it kind of shows exactly how crazy the movie business is. It's like you said, it's like, yo, they spent so many years and they're right at the finish line, and just because there was a string of bombs and they're like cleaning house, they're like, well, you know what? The last executives that thought that this could actually work, we're kind of afraid that we're going to be bankrupt or we're going to lose some money. So you know what? We're going to go a different direction. It's just how it is. It's just how it is. So yeah, so definitely, you know, if you're watching that documentary, keep an eye out for that part, because it really explains a lot. It explains a whole lot on how big making a movie is, where it's not just on the director, it's really everything. It's everybody involved that makes a movie. And especially in this movie, I mean, and it's so funny. And again, it goes back to that. It's like they kind of assembled the right people for the wrong movie. It's like you had an interesting costume designer, you had an interesting team that was, you know, of concept artist, of, you know, creature artist, of, you know, all this stuff that really made interesting choices and interesting designs, but not for a Superman movie. Not for the right movie. It was just too out there. So again, it goes back to, had this been an original film and they pitched it to Warner Brothers as an original film, now granted, they probably wouldn't get the amount of money that they would have got for a Superman film, but they could have made this movie and still made it what it is, you know, and worked around it, again, because it's not a Superman film. But yeah, I love those parts. I love those parts in the documentary where they're like, you know, and even Tim Burton's writer, the writer who was like the one that he hired to replace Kevin Smith, he gets fired halfway through the process. He gets fired because, you know, the execs that was the other thing. The execs haven't even read the script, and they're halfway through production, and finally somebody reads the script and they're like, this is terrible. No, all of this has to change. None of this is good. And that's when they brought in the third. So that just goes to show you, is like, nobody read the script. Nobody. And a drop of a hat, they read the script, and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, this writer sucks. Let's get another writer. Halfway through production, it makes common sense when you're making a project or anything, you would read the script first. No, not in Hollywood. Sometimes execs, they get
lazy.
the script
I mean,
last.
that's the thing, is they start living a Hollywood lifestyle, they get lazy. That's what it comes down to. You know, it's like, I mean, that's the thing that I got from this whole thing. It's like, people didn't know what they were doing, didn't know what they were talking about, are tasked to do this big budget film. You know what I'm saying? Like this, I mean, like, they took the whole budget and they put it into what was it? Wild Wild West. And at the end of the day, Wild West has got $170 million budget. Yeah, and obviously that bombed. Like, oh yeah, you guys made a wise decision with that. At least with Superman, I could say, look, if Wild West, I think made like a little over 100 million. I think they said.
I forget. Yeah.
So if that fucking shit film would have did that, Superman right here would have made. I'm telling you, it would have made probably like $500 million, maybe even $1 billion. I'm telling you, I think this film would have did that. I'm not saying because I think it was going to be good. I'm saying opposite. It wouldn't have been good. It wouldn't have been good, just based off of the fact that it's so similar to Man of Steel, and Man of Steel did all this much money because that's what the fans wanted to see at the end of the day. They wanted to see those buildings come down. They were tired, or they said, or at least, you know, people believe that they were. Some fans were tired of that, but the true diehard Superman fans, like me and you,
yeah,
we wanted to see traditional Superman. It's like, why can't we see traditional Superman in these kind of situations? But like, that's the thing about these execs, is like, they don't understand these things, and that's the thing. There needs to be somebody that needs to be working with them, like the 10th Man or something like that. Like they said in what was it? World War Z. You know what he said with Israel did. You know, oh, we had the 10th Man or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, when everybody else, you know, his whole job is to disagree with the other 9, and he has to persuade them to see this one viewpoint. And there need to be somebody like that to fucking be like, wait a second, common sense that this might work here. And I'm not saying that I think at the end of the day, they did make the right move by not making this film.
Yeah, well,
You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
they
I
hired new
mean,
execs who knew this wasn't gonna work.
no, it wasn't that because it's like you said, they didn't. It's not because they didn't know it was gonna work because they wanted to go the safer route.
Right.
And this was such a left field film that it was too risque. You know. Now I'm sure now Warner Brothers is looking at it and they're like, well, shit, you know what I'm saying? Because we just had a recent version of this film and it did this much. Damn, we could have made that much money back then. We could have recouped all our money from the other films we lost with this one fucking film.
Yeah.
You know? So, you know, but the thing about it is like I said, when I'm watching this whole thing, you know, I'm seeing how the business works and I'm seeing what the business did to like one of the most iconic characters there ever been. For comic books, there's only one character that I think that stands above the rest, and that's Superman. You know, you could have favorites. Your favorite could be Batman. Your favorite could be Spider-Man. Your favorite could be Captain America. It could be the Fantastic Fours. It could be any of the Avengers, the Hulks. You know what I'm saying? Silver Surfers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It could be Cable. Or it could be whatever. But the bottom line is the most iconic character of all of them is Superman. When people think comic books, they think Superman. You know, there are certain figures that are associated with a certain genre. Comic books is Superman. If you're looking at wrestling, you're going to say Hulk Hogan. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, you know, if you're thinking U.S. presidents and stuff, you're going to go ahead and think Abraham Lincoln or George Washington. You know what I'm saying? There's some iconic character for like every kind of genre that's just associated. Video games, you know what I'm saying? You're probably thinking, you know, when you think Nintendo, you're going to think Mario. You know what I'm saying? Etc. The thing that really pissed me off about this whole process of them making this film, including the new films they had, the ones that came out after that they end up releasing, like you know, Returns, like Man of Steel, especially Man of Steel. The thing that really pissed me off more about all that was that Hollywood had this like nostalgia to all the old films that did great. And meanwhile, they took like an old school character, you know what I'm saying, that the old school fans love, and they were going to trash him just so they could please like the new audiences, you know?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's the thing that kills me. It's like, if you're going to do that, imagine they did that to Star Wars. You know, Star Wars hasn't come out yet. Imagine they took everything about Star Wars and they said, we're going to do the opposite of it. Imagine how the fans would have felt for that. It would have been pandemonium. There would have been riots on the streets. Imagine that.
Yeah.
And that's what they did with Superman. You know, that's what they've been doing to Superman. It's like I said, I mean, I don't know how it would have been real interesting to see if this film, if it would have been made, you know, what would the outcome been?
Yeah.
I think part of me actually wanted this film to be made, not at the time, but like after the aftermath of seeing what's been released after that. Part of me wanted it to be, because I felt like if it would have been early on in the beginning of comic books, I feel like there's been a lot more stuff that could have been forgiven. Okay, we're talking about, like I said, the movie would have been released in 2000, 2001. Okay, I felt like if this would have been released, Man of Steel would never existed. And maybe Superman Returns, I feel like they would have went back to the way the character was. Maybe Superman Returns would have been made. Because, you know, obviously that was a throwback to the Richard Donner films. Well, except it wasn't executed right.
I still think Man of Steel would be made just because of the culture we live in now, where every movie...
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Mind you, another Superman film would have been made. Yeah. But not like the way Man of Steel is. You know what I'm saying? I felt like if this film would have came out, it was so similar to Man of Steel that it would have had them really second guessing, well, do we do a Man of Steel or do we not? Now, however, if this would have done good, imagine that this shit would have did good. Okay? Like what Man of Steel did, but especially since it was back then and no one was doing this back then. Okay? What would have been the future of films? Because now when Man of Steel came out, people, I've noticed they've been trying to step up the action in these films now. Mm-hmm. You know? If anything, that's the only thing Man of Steel really did that was really kind of groundbreaking. Because now that Man of Steel came out, now everybody's kind of realizing we need to kind of step up when it comes to the action sequences.
Right.
You know? Because it's like they all been kind of playing it safe. Or, you know, saying, you know, they've been taking these safe routes.
Well, budget-wise.
And now that they see that...
budget-wise and effects-wise, they can make it work.
No, I mean, listen, I seen other films that didn't have a big budget, yet they were still pulling off good action sequences. For instance, what was that movie came out? with these the TK kids. They were flying all over the place. What was that called? Ah, man, damn.
They were flying.
Nah. Yeah. The aliens meteorite came and gave them telekinetic powers. Damn, man, I can't believe I forgot the name of it.
Witch Mountain?
Shit.
No.
No. I'm talking about not Witch Mountain. No, I'm talking about the kid who's playing Harry Osborn in Spider-Man, and then the guy's gonna be
Chronicle.
Yeah, Chronicles. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, you're talking about now. I mean, like I'm talking about now they can do that, but back then.
But back then they could. It's just they just weren't pulling it off.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But people, like, for instance, I don't like this director, but he did pull it off. Like, people, like think about what James Cameron did with Titanic. He sunk one big ship, right?
No, but what I'm saying
is... And then, what's his name? Not Jerry Bruckheimer. What's this guy from Pearl Harbor? The Pearl Harbor director. Damn, man, I'm messing up names. Michael Bay. He ended up sinking how many ships? You know, it can be done. It's like he said, damn, I got this budget. I don't have a Titanic budget, but I have to sink even more ships than they did in Titanic.
Yeah, but you see
he
the
figured out how to
over
do
time.
And that was around, but that was, when that came out, that was like, early 2000s.
Right. But every year, the special effects... Okay, so now here's the other business side of it. This would have came
out in 2000, 2001.
Here's the other business side of it. So as special effects started to get more prevalent in movies from the 90s, what started to happen was from the early 2000s to now, and they still kind of do this today, is that as the technology became more ready and more effects houses started to open up, it became easier to do them because there was more technology available and there was more people available. And what they started doing was they started to pit up these startup virtual effects companies with each other. So they would go to, let's say they go to ILM, right? ILM is like the biggest one. That's the big special effects house. So they go to ILM, they go, how much you want to charge for this scene? And let's say they give them an estimate of, it's going to cost you $5 million, $6 million to do that. All right. So then what they do is then they go to another, VFX house. They're like, hey, do like a comp up, a fake mock up of the scene of what you would do with it. So then they do it, and it's almost the same as ILM. They're like, all right, how much you charge for that? They're like, well, we're a startup. How much are you willing to give us? Well, the budget will only allow us to give you $3 million. Oh no, we can do $3 million. Boom, they went from $5 million to $3 million. Then they go to the other effects house. They do the same thing. They're like, oh, wow, that's really good. Well, we can only give you $2 million to do this, so I don't know if you want... No, we're hungry. We want to do it. Yeah, we could do it for $2 million. It doesn't matter. We'll do it. So now what started happening was the technology started to go and the price started to go down on certain things. So now you have all these movies as the years, and it's been going by fast. So let's say from early 2000s to now, now it's just skyrocketing where there's so many effects house and you're able to do so much more than you could have 10 years ago. But not only that, but unfortunately they're cheapskating a lot of visual effects companies because it's like bargain shopping now. It's like who can we do for the least price with the biggest effect? So that's why you're able to see the Michael Bays and all that other stuff kind of catch up and starting to do all these actual action sequences because now they can afford it and you have the processing power of a computer to actually do it. So that's why Man of Steel was the way it was. Yeah, they wanted action. They finally got action, but it's because they could also afford the action and they could actually do the action. It wasn't like before where they were still worried. Is it going to look like Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman kind of action? Is it going to look like shitty action? Is it going to look like, Superman, but, then how much we got to pay for that? There's all of that stuff involved. So, yeah, from Titanic to now, from Titanic to Avatar, and I even say shorter than that, and you brought up a great point. From Titanic to Pearl Harbor, things have gone by so fast in that time that they're able to do all that stuff. That going back to what you were saying with Tim Burton's thing is like they're able to do that, but I wonder how much of the budget would have went into there and how much they would have to cut out because of that. Just because, there's a difference between a Batman special effect and a Superman special effect, and especially the stuff that they wanted to do is a whole different ball game. So
Well, he had 150 million, so I would imagine he would have been able to do like a lot of big things with that. You know.
yeah,
So, I mean, like I said, it's a big what if. You know, what
yeah,
if this would have came out? Like the outcome, we'll never know.
yeah,
But part of me has that curiosity, not because I think it's gonna be a good film. You know, I've been seeing a lot of bad films lately. There's a lot of films I hate, and I really, more than anything else, I hate it when they fuck up a Superman film. I really do.
yeah.
I mean, the only films that I got more mad that they ruined was Dragon Ball Evolution. You know what I'm saying, when they did the Dragon Ball film. That's the only other film that,
Oh
that
God.
like, pissed me off as much as when they fuck up that. And it's really because of the character that's really annoying
Right.
me that they're fucking up. Because it's a character that I love with a passion. You know, I actually I get more offended when they mess up a Superman film when they do even a Batman film, because I like Superman better than Batman.
I do too. Yeah.
And I even like him probably better than Captain America. Thinking about it right now, because when they messed up the first Captain America film,
You
I
weren't as
didn't
hurt.
get as yeah. It's like, I was thinking about that. I think I like Captain America better, but then again, I'm thinking about it, I'm like, but nah, I was more offended when they fucked up Superman. I really was. And when it comes to this, it's like, I don't know, like the whole thing I'm getting from this whole Superman movie franchise thing, it's almost like it's a cursed franchise. Because even when I'm hearing Kevin Smith's version of his script and stuff, and he's saying he likes this, and he's talking about as a comic book fan, and I'm hearing some of his ideas, I'm like, but Kevin, that sounds kind of cheesy. Batman comes on, saying, Times Square and stuff, and
Yeah.
on the Titantron.
Batman
and
would
he's
never
like,
do that.
yeah, like why would Batman do that? Like Batman probably wouldn't even go to the funeral until everybody was gone, and then he paid his respects. As a matter of fact, I think, when Superman got killed, I think Batman, I think he might have got his bat broken around that time.
No,
I'm not
well,
sure.
Batman was chilling like on the cover. On the cover, he's there in front of the casket, but in the actual comic book, you have all the superheroes around the casket, and you have Batman kind of hanging back in the shadows. Like he's there, he's visibly there, but he's not as close as everybody else is. Everybody's just like really close, and he's just hanging back. Because
It goes back to like, now you had a fan. It's like he should know this, but he was doing that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, because he
and
said
there was some
he was
other stuff that he was
Yeah.
putting in there. And like, I understand he was getting so much heat from this one idiot. You know what I'm saying? This idiot. I think this idiot was fucking up Kevin Smith's creativity. You know what I'm saying? I felt like he was like really just, he was just being that leech on him that was just taking away any kind of like, passion he would have for it. I felt like probably as it went on, he was probably getting less and less passionate, because he's like, man, what change I gotta make? Whatever circle, whatever hoop do I have to jump through for this idiot who obviously doesn't know anything about Superman?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's like I'm even hearing his script and stuff, and like I said, I'm not liking a lot of the ideas he had in it.
Well, you could actually see his script. I was gonna do that this week. You could actually see Kevin Smith's script online. Online somewhere they have the script that he wrote.
Well, shit, I'm definitely gonna check that out, because I'll before I, even say anything of her, I want to check that out and see exactly what he put in there. But from the ideas they put in there, like I said, I know it's that one guy. Was really messing it up.
Yeah, and that's kind of where you have to take that script with a grain of salt, because a lot of that script is the notes. There are the notes from Peters. So I mean,
but even some of the stuff that he added in his own, like his own, his own ideas, like that funeral scene, like I wasn't feeling that. I felt like if I would have been watching this on the screen, I would have been doing the opposite of what he thought he would have been getting a reaction. But man, that's kind of cheesy. Like, it's not Batman. Like, why would Batman do that? Like that's not what he's about. But I don't know. Like, I almost feel like it's almost like a Doom franchise. Like, I feel like they just need to like stop it now, and then go ahead and pick it up maybe some years down the road. Now, the interesting thing about this, the fact this doc just came out, and it was around the same time that the trailer for the new Batman Superman film's gonna come out, right? I wonder if they're gonna, depending on how this next film does, if it doesn't do good, I wonder if they're gonna actually let Tim Burton do what he had ideas to do anyway, because they had to see the similarities between the two.
I don't
You know what I'm
know.
saying?
It's a different world now. Now everything's based on franchises and cinematic universes thanks to Marvel, that they have so much planned out that it would be really hard for them to go that far left with his idea. Like, I think it would work if there wasn't a cinematic universe, but now that
I mean,
there
you don't
is,
you don't you don't think they went that far left with the current Superman? You
no,
know?
man. I think you're really trying. Don't get me wrong. I do not like Man of Steel, but there are some ties to him being Superman. I mean, there are some morality questions that I have, and there are some costume choices, but there are still a lot of things that kind of keep it closer to Superman than Tim Burton's Superman. Like, Tim Burton's Superman, that whole story is just way, way out there. Like, way, way out there. It's too much, too much left field. Just comparing the two is like, yeah, I mean, at least the dude doesn't have a robot that's on him to give him protection. His Clark Kent, at least, he looks like a hipster Clark Kent, but he still looks like Clark Kent and not this crazy nerdy, like this just like caricature of a Clark Kent. Superman it's like you just said, is like Superman ponders his place in the world, but you even said it, is like Nicolas Cage would have took it to that next level. This Superman just seems confused, and we talked about this already in the other podcast, but he just seems confused because he's getting a lot of contradictory information from his parents. It's like, do it, give them hope, or don't do it. You don't owe them anything. Fuck it. So it's like he's confused because of the way he was brought up. Is very confused. But it's two totally different movies. It would not work right now. There's no way that film would even fit in everything that they have going forward. So yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I said, I don't like Man of Steel, but between those two, Man of Steel is at least a little bit closer to the source material. But yeah, that being said, it's just, I think you're right. I think the Superman franchise is a weird franchise because they like the character, but they don't like the character. Like, I've never seen such a contradiction. It's so funny that the movie has that contradiction, but I feel like anybody who comes on board for a Superman film since Richard Donner always wants to put their stamp on Superman, their take on Superman. And it's so weird because they always start with, growing up, I love Superman, but I want to make my version of Superman. And I've never seen that for any other comic book character in that sense. Like, sure, Spider-Man, people kind of have their version of Spider-Man, but there's still something about it that feels like it's a Spider-Man film. Sure, Captain America, sure, Iron Man, like, they're all these things that, like, they want to quote unquote put their take on it, but there's still something similar to that. And I feel like with Superman is like, they like the idea of Superman, but they want to change Superman. And that's,
and at the end of the day, the changes end up creating a new character.
Yeah, exactly. So Superman is just, and it's unfortunate because it's like the blueprint is there. It works if you use it right. And I feel like the one person that should have got the job when he had the chance to was J.J. Abrams. Unfortunately, J.J. Abrams did not take it. It went to Bryan Singer, and we got Bryan Singer's version of Superman. I feel.
Imagine that, J.J. Abrams. I mean, this is a guy who actually knows how to bring, the true characters to life.
Yeah,
that's what he did with Star Trek. That's what I feel like he's going to do with Star Wars.
Yeah. I
mean, God, man, it would have been real awesome.
That would have been perfect. That would have been a perfect mix of the right director. I think he would have brought on the right team to really give it not only the appropriate tone, but make it exciting and fun for everybody. Because I think that's what it is. Everybody feels like Superman's gonna be boring. His morals, his character, they equal that to boring, and I don't know why. I don't know why they feel that way. I think it's because it's like we said before. It's like he never really fought anybody. Like that they never really showed his cast of villains. It was just always Lex Luthor. And that's it. That's all. And some guy that they made up in the fourth one. I haven't seen anybody
could really they
Zod,
did that
Zod and some sun god that they did in the fourth one.
Quest for Peace, but it was poorly executed in Quest for Peace. Now in the Superman 2, they executed it right. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
Because
but
that was a success. But since that film, yes,
that was
they
it.
haven't been able to do it.
Yeah.
And it would be so nice if they could get that kind of style of filming, but like, you know, modernize it for now. And I don't mean modernize it like we're gonna change Superman's costume up, we're gonna change his look up. I don't mean modernize it like that. I mean take the exact same style of that. Okay, all you're doing is updating technology, and that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
You do that, and I feel like that could be such a more superior Superman. You could have a Superman that's gonna appeal for all of the fans, the true diehard Superman, and those casual fans that they just want to see a cool superhero film.
Yeah.
You know, and I would just like them to make a film really for the diehards at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, the ones who were collecting comic books. You know, what I'm saying when before comic book movies were even really much of a thought, or when they were still doing low budget versions of those films like The Punisher, and when they had the low budget Captain America film. You know, I would like them to do something like that. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like you know, give us something. You know, but just give us what were you gonna say?
I said, unfortunately, we are the minority of people who want that Superman.
Yeah, but you know,
everybody's loving this one. Everybody's loving this, man. You know, everybody's loving this style. But I feel it's because they don't know what they're missing. I think.
And I'm telling you, now that the fact this doc came out and they're releasing this at the same time as this trailer, I think people's argument is gonna be for this new Man of Steel, this new Batman versus Superman film. You know, but look at what Tim Burton was gonna do. I feel like this is actually gonna make those films look better.
Yeah.
You know, because they could have went with this. You know, he could have been fighting like
now
the
they're
head
using
of Brainiac and stuff. You know, but you know, once again, it's a big what if. We don't know how that would have came out. I don't like what's going on now. I don't like that version either. I really don't. You know, I think Tim Burton would have done a horrible, you know, what I'm saying, job with Superman. But it would have still been interesting. No matter what, all these other Superman films, they're all interesting in their own ways. Even Man of Steel and Superman Returns, and including this one. You know what I'm saying? Superman Lives. They're all interesting. But I just want to see an actual film that I could be proud of when it comes to Superman.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to have to like go ahead and be like, oh, wait a second, they're doing a Superman marathon, and I get to watch, you know, my boy Christopher Reeves do it up as Superman. I don't want to, you know, I want something that's updated. You know what I'm saying? If I could call my own. But
one day, Vic. One day we'll
never
get
get
that. Unfortunately,
I don't know. Like,
unfortunately, right now they're gonna use, just like you said, they're gonna use this Tim Burton thing to be like, see, just like Bryan Singer did. They're gonna be like, see, it could have been worse. It could have been worse. But
I mean, at least get that costume. You know what I'm saying? I actually like that costume. Like I said, at least put that on that Superman. You know, that I think it would have been pulled off. You know, it was definitely interesting concept to the man.
It was, and it was an interesting doc. I mean, overall, like I said, I really enjoyed it. I liked that it brought to light not only the crazy ideas that everybody had, but it showed more of Hollywood and how Hollywood works and how the business works. And it was a very interesting documentary, you know, all around. It was really, really good. Again, shout out to you know, him for bringing this all together and actually making this work and getting all the stuff that he was able to get to show the full story of why this wasn't made.
Oh yeah, I love docs in general, and I feel like this doc was easily one of my favorites because it explores that urban legend, not just of like the Superman, that whole like, because it ended up being like an urban legend about this, but it also explored about like, you know what I'm saying, like the industry, you know what I'm saying, the filming industry.
Yeah,
you know, like it really showed behind the scenes of that, and I thought that made it even more interesting because when you think you're just gonna see something about why this film didn't get made, now you're seeing, you know, a more of a deeper aspect. You know, you get like the whole spectrum, and you're like, damn, this is even crazier than I could ever imagine.
Yeah,
but it was great. It was great, and you know, kudos to him. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
Everybody worked on that film. Definitely loved it.
Definitely, and if you guys have listened to this podcast and haven't checked it out, what are you doing? Check it out. It's a really, really good documentary. But that's gonna be it for this podcast. Thanks for listening. Definitely check out the other episodes we have on our list. And thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.